Imagine a future where the ocean isn't just monitored, but actively healed by this vast, living, intelligent network. What if the solution to ocean health crises wasn't just, bigger boats or more buoys, but something that behaves like the ocean's own immune system? That image, I think, it really struck me in the sources you shared about Shahryar Ghiasi's incredible concept.
It's precisely the vision, yeah.
Yeah.
Behind what we're exploring today, Shahryar Ghiasi, an Iranian enthusiast, his background's actually in architecture and city management, which is interesting. He's proposed something truly revolutionary.
Exactly. And what we're really diving into today is this incredibly ambitious idea, the Symbiotic Oceanic Monitoring and Restoration Network, or SOMR. It's a bold proposal. Aims to profoundly shift our relationship with the ocean, moving way beyond just better observation.
What's fascinating here is how Ghiasi's proposal really leans into integration and active stewardship. It's not just about understanding the ocean,
Right.
but becoming a benign partner in its health.
Mhm.
You know,
So our mission in this deep dive is to really unpack this fascinating proposal for you. We'll look at how it aims to solve some of the biggest, most stubborn issues in oceanography, and what a future with a living ocean network might actually look like for you and for our planet. Because let's be honest, the ocean's facing some unprecedented challenges right now.
absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the SOMR network is designed to tackle several core problems. Problems that currently plague oceanographic research and conservation too. For instance, right now, we're chronically data poor in the vast oceans.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
Our methods, they just give us snapshots
Hmm.
in time and space, especially in deep water or under the ice. Huge gaps in our understanding. It's almost like trying to understand this massive, complex organism by just looking at a few scattered photos. You get glimpses, but never the full living picture.
And it feels like we're always playing catch-up, doesn't it? We usually find out about problems like coral bleaching or deoxygenation or these harmful algal blooms after they've become full-blown disasters. It's totally reactive. We're just scrambling.
Precisely. We lack that ability to detect the precursors, the early warnings, and intervene early. SOMR is about enabling a proactive approach. And this raises a really important question about the sustainability of current research. Oceanographic work, it's incredibly expensive.
Oh, hugely.
Relies on costly, high-maintenance equipment, limited lifespans, significant carbon footprints. The SOMR concept aims to flip that whole thing on its head.
That's a massive point. It feels like right now we observe a problem, we analyze it, then maybe much later it's a whole separate mission to try and address it. How does SOMR actually bridge that gap? How does it integrate the observation and the action in, real time?
That's exactly what it aims to do, which brings us neatly to the first fundamental piece of the SOMR network, the biointegrators, or what you could call the individual living nodes.
Okay, so these aren't your typical metal robots floating around then. The description says they're small, engineered biological platforms designed as hosts for technology, a semi-living, bio-integrated device. What does that actually look like? How do they, function?
Imagine them small, like maybe 1 to 10 centimeters across, resilient, perhaps like a synthetic jellyfish or a salp specifically. The proposal mentions mimicking the moon jellyfish, Aurelia aurita.
Huh, okay.
They're neutrally buoyant, designed to just drift naturally with currents, which massively minimizes their energy use, right? And what's truly ingenious is their outer layer. It's a biocompatible, semi-permeable hydrogel.
All hydrogel.
Like jelly.
Sort of, yeah, but a smart material. It's self-healing, so it can repair minor punctures itself. And it's anti-fouling, meaning it actually secretes enzymes to deter barnacles and other marine growth from sticking to it.
Wow.
They even have embedded chromatophores, like you see in a squid skin. Allows them to dynamically change transparency or coloration to perfectly blend in. Dynamic camouflage. That concept of them being truly part of the ocean, not just objects floating in it, that's really compelling. But the immediate question for me, given they're just drifting out there independently, is how are they powered? Are we talking about sending out recharging boats, or is it something more integrated?
It's absolutely integrated. They're designed to be energy positive, harvesting more power than they actually consume, almost like a biological metabolism. Their primary power source is a microbial fuel cell, an MFC.
Microbial fuel cell.
Yeah, it houses these genetically optimized electrogenic bacteria, tiny biological powerhouses like certain types found deep in the sea. They essentially eat dissolved organic matter, just stuff that's already in the seawater,
Okay.
and generate electricity as a byproduct. Think of it as a living, self-sustaining battery.
So they literally use the ocean's own organic material, like waste or nutrients, to power themselves.
That's astonishing. And they have secondary power sources too. Thermoelectric generation basically harnesses the natural temperature differences between warmer surface waters and colder deep layers, converts that thermal energy directly into electricity.
Like a tiny heat engine.
A small, silent power plant using only the ocean's own heat, yeah. And then there's kinetic harvesting. Piezoelectric polymers like PVDF, woven into their structure, they flex with the currents, generate electricity for higher drain tasks, like maybe sending a signal. It's truly multimodal power.
That's quite the feat of engineering and biology. But what about their lifespan and deployment? Are we just creating more ocean trash in the end, albeit very smart trash, when they're done?
That's a critical concern, absolutely. And it's been thought through in the concept. They can be deployed in this dehydrated spore form. You can pack loads of them. They activate within hours just by contacting salt water. Crucially, they're designed to be completely biodegradable.
Okay, that's good.
They have a pre-programmed operational lifespan, let's say, like 2 to 5 years, maybe 3 to 5. After this time, an enzyme kicks in, initiates their breakdown into harmless organic compounds, bioavailable carbon, nitrogen, silicates. It leaves absolutely no trace. They might even provide a tiny nutritional benefit to the ecosystem as they break down.
Wow.
There's also potential for self-replication, but under controlled lab conditions before deployment. That's more of a longer-term vision, though.
So if these biointegrators are the individual cells of this ocean immune system, designed for self-sufficiency, minimal impact, what gives them their senses, and critically, their ability to actually act. That's where we get into pillar 2, right? The sensory and action suite, the nervous system, as you called it.
Exactly. This involves miniaturized, ultra-low-power technologies embedded right inside each biointegrator. And they don't just sense, they're designed to respond, to act.
Okay, so what are their senses like? Is it much more sophisticated than just the standard CTD, the, conductivity, temperature, depth?
Oh, far more advanced. Embedded within each one is what the proposal calls a lab-on-a-chip core. Imagine miniaturizing an entire analytical chemistry lab onto a tiny microchip, enabling it to continuously sample the water, perform complex, real-time analyses. Way beyond simple temperature or depth, they measure full-spectrum geochemistry. Core vitals like pH, dissolved oxygen, pressure, salinity, sure, but also biogeochemistry, nitrate, phosphate, silicate, chlorophyll, plus pollution indicators like heavy metals and ocean acidification markers like carbonate ion concentration, aragonite saturation.
That's an incredible amount of data from one tiny little jellyfish-like device. But I'm seeing something here called pollutant tattoos in the source material. That's such a vivid term. What does this truly unlock for us, especially for tackling elusive threats like microplastics? Is this a complete game changer compared to how we detect these things today?
It absolutely is, yeah. Beyond the standard chemistry, they perform real-time eDNA sequencing.
eDNA, environmental DNA.
Exactly. Filtering genetic material from the water to provide a rapid barcode of life. Tracking microbial shifts, maybe migrating tuna, or even invasive larvae, just from the DNA floating in the water. They also have acoustic fingerprinting, a hydrophone listening for marine mammals, ship noise pollution, geophysical events. But yes, the pollutant tattoos, they're really unique. Specialized fluorescent biopolymers on the surface. They're designed to bind to specific pollutants, microplastics, hydrocarbons, persistent organic pollutants like bisphenol A.
And when they bind?
This binding triggers a quantifiable glow. It's detected by internal sensors. This allows for a parts per trillion detection. It's like the ocean itself is literally flagging its wounds for us, showing us exactly where the problem is.
So they're not just reporting on the problem, hey, there's plastic here. They're actively trying to mitigate it right there, on the spot. This is the immune response aspect you mentioned. How exactly do these micro-restoration actuators work?
It's the revolutionary step, really. For example, they can do targeted alkalinity dosing, releasing a microdose of a safe, biodegradable alkaline substance like bicarbonate right into pH hotspots.
To counteract acidification locally.
Exactly. It creates this tiny temporary refuge, maybe just a few meters wide, for vulnerable organisms like coral larvae. It could significantly increase their survival odds in these little acidic patches.
So they're like tiny environmental first responders, giving immediate aid right where it's needed most.
And it goes further. Precision biologics release. They contain these micro-reservoirs of benign, dormant biological agents. And say, if harmful algal species like Alexandrium are detected...
The ones that cause red tides.
Right. The node can release a targeted bacteriophage, essentially, a virus that exclusively infects and destroys that specific algae. It acts like a biological scalpel. Super precise.
A virus that specifically targets harmful algae. That sounds incredibly powerful. But are there, potential risks, unforeseen consequences, releasing biological agents, even targeted ones, into a complex ecosystem like the ocean?
That's a crucial question, definitely, and one we'll absolutely touch on later when we discuss the challenges. For now, the concept really emphasizes extremely precise targeting to minimize any broader impact. Think of it more as a very precise, localized intervention, not like a broad spectrum treatment. Or, for nascent dead zones areas where oxygen is plummeting, nutrients are high. They can release dormant cysts of benign, fast-growing diatoms. These would consume the excess nutrients. Or, for coral reefs under thermal stress, maybe release heat-resistant symbiotic bacteria, probiotics for corals, essentially, to boost their resilience, help them survive bleaching events.
Probiotics for corals. Wow.
And finally, the hydrogel body itself can act. It can absorb excess nitrates or phosphates in those early dead zones, effectively locking them away until the node biodegrades somewhere else, harmlessly.
It's a complete closed-loop system, then. Sensing and direct action, all in one tiny package. That really does shift our thinking from just observation to active partnership. Which brings us to Pillar 3, the swarm intelligence and data network, the collective brain. This is where millions of these tiny biointegrators start working together, right? Not just individuals anymore.
Exactly. No single node is all that powerful on its own, but collectively, they become transformative. This is the Internet of Underwater Things, really.
Okay, and how do they talk to each other down there? Underwater communication is notoriously tricky. How do they achieve that level of collective intelligence?
They use a sophisticated, ultra-low-power acoustic mesh network, communicating with these low-energy chirps, high-frequency short-range.
Just goose chirp.
Plus, it allows for massive, simultaneous, short-range conversations between nodes. What's remarkable here is the network itself. It's self-forming and self-healing. Its topology, the way the nodes connect, constantly adapts as they drift, finding the most energy-efficient paths to relay information, a bit like ant colony optimization algorithms.
So if one node fails or drifts away,
The network automatically reroutes. It makes it inherently resilient. Plus, information isn't just passed along raw, it's processed as it travels. Nodes append their own data, so a packet reaching a gateway might contain a rich, multi-point summary from a whole area.
so it's not just raw data flooding upwards. There's intelligence built in at every level, right there at the edge of the network, within the swarm itself.
That's right, it's distributed intelligence, swarm AI, and edge computing. Each biointegrator has an onboard AI, like a tiny local brain. It learns the baseline conditions for its specific location and depth. Its primary job is anomaly detection. For instance, pH just dropped 0.05 units in 3 hours. That's 3 standard deviations from the norm for this spot. It's looking for deviations, things that are out of the ordinary, not just absolute numbers.
Okay, so does one node's detection immediately trigger an alarm or an action? Or is there a safeguard against, like, a faulty sensor causing a response?
Not immediately, no. It relies on a consensus-based reality. An anomaly detected by one node only becomes verified when a quorum, a certain number of nearby nodes in that geographic area, agree. Yeah, I'm seeing that too. That elevates it to a verified phenomenon. And once it's verified, the collective AI decides on a response, often without direct human intervention.
The idea of the collective AI making decisions without human intervention, that's a significant leap. Could you maybe walk us through a specific scenario? How would this autonomous immune response actually play out?
Certainly. Let's take a potential oil spill. Nodes start detecting hydrocarbon fluorescence from their pollutant tattoos.
Okay.
They communicate, achieve consensus. Yep, definitely hydrocarbons here.
Yeah.
They might increase their sampling rate automatically, triangulate the source based on concentration gradients, then send priority data packets up to the nearest surface gateway for human response teams.
Wow, super fast detection and localization.
Or consider pre-bleaching stress around a coral reef. The swarm detects rising temperatures and chemical stress signals. The collective AI could then instruct nodes upstream in the current to start releasing that alkalinity buffer and maybe the coral probiotics we talked about, creating a protective plume that drifts over the reef.
So it's literally like the ocean's immune system sending targeted help proactively before the damage gets really bad. And how does all this information from potentially millions of these tiny devices ultimately get back to us, to the researchers and managers?
The data is relayed acoustically using those chirps through the mesh network to diverse uplink points. These could be dedicated SOMR surface buoys, sure, but also tagged large marine animals, whales, turtles, turning them into mobile data relays.
Using whales as data points.
Yeah, or autonomous surface vessels, ASVs, drone ships, and even potentially retrofitting commercial shipping vessels with special receivers, a whole range of gateways. All this data feeds into a global, real-time 4D, that's 3D space plus time, digital twin of the ocean.
A digital twin.
A high-resolution model that continuously updates. It uses machine learning to interpolate data between the nodes, fill in the gaps, and even predict future states. It becomes this queryable model for researchers, governments, industry, providing an unprecedented living map of the ocean's health and dynamics.
Okay, so let's bring this back. What does this all mean for you, our listener? What's the grand vision here for the future, and why should we all be paying close attention to this concept?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the SOMR network could fundamentally transform oceanography. From this sparse expeditionary science we do now into persistent, intelligent, planetary-scale stewardship. It's a really profound shift, I think, from merely studying the ocean as outsiders to becoming a benign, symbiotic partner with it.
And here's where the tangible impact really hits home for you listening. Think about the biggest challenges our oceans face right now. Let's start with climate change. We could have real-time ocean acidification response. Targeted alkalinity microdoses, creating temporary buffer zones for corals, for shellfish, for anything that builds a shell. Predictive coral bleaching alerts days or even weeks ahead, triggering the release of those heat-resistant symbiotic algae or bacteria we talked about, maybe saving reefs. Or imagine marine heat wave tracking that alerts fishery managers, aquaculture farms, conservation groups weeks in advance so they can prepare. Plus, it could provide high-resolution carbon sink verification, giving us direct empirical measurement of the ocean's carbon cycle in real time. That would drastically improve our climate models.
And for pollution control, just imagine. No escape spill detection, triangulating the source, mapping a 3D trajectory within minutes for rapid response teams. That could be huge. Or mapping the plastosphere, providing the first real-time 3D map of microplastic concentrations. Where are they really? How deep do they go? Even acoustic pollution zoning. Mapping noise from shipping, from industry, allowing for dynamic quiet zones for marine mammals during critical times like calving season, and smart, harmful algal bloom neutralization, using those targeted phages or competing diatoms before the bloom becomes toxic and widespread.
That's an immediate, tangible impact across so many critical areas. It's almost hard to grasp the scale.
And for biodiversity, ecosystem management. Real-time fisheries management could finally become possible. A continuous, non-invasive census of fish populations using eDNA and acoustic sensors. Imagine dynamic quotas based on real numbers, truly preventing overfishing. Invasive species border control, immediate eDNA detection of non-native species like zebra mussel larvae in ballast water discharge zones, allowing containment before ecological disaster strikes. And as we mentioned, HAB prevention. Preemptively neutralizing blooms based on detecting the right conditions and microbial signatures before they explode.
This also sounds like it has huge implications for the blue economy, the sustainable use of ocean resources for economic growth.
Absolutely. Think of intelligent aquaculture, a 247 guardian against pathogens and poor water quality in fish farms, reducing losses and antibiotic use. Optimal and safe ship routing. Unparalleled real-time data on currents, waves, even rogue wave formation. Saving potentially billions in fuel, drastically reducing emissions, improving safety, and environmental impact assurance. Imagine independent, real-time audits for offshore wind farms or potential deep-sea mining operations, holding industries accountable for their environmental footprint continuously.
And just for pure scientific discovery, exploring the deepest, most mysterious parts of the ocean.
The swarm AI could autonomously redirect nodes, converge on novel chemical signatures, maybe indicating new hydrothermal vents or methane seeps, sending nodes there for intensive study, accelerating discovery in ways previously unimaginable. And it could give us the first continuous, year-round view of ecosystems beneath the ice sheets in the Arctic and Antarctic, unlocking entirely new frontiers of understanding about life in extreme environments.
So after all we've discussed, let's try to boil it down. What are the core advantages of this SOMR concept over current methods? Why is this potentially not just an incremental improvement, but a true paradigm shift?
Well, first, it offers unprecedented data density and resolution. It transforms the ocean from this data desert into a data-rich environment, filling those vast gaps, especially in the deep sea, under ice. Current methods just give us sparse snapshots. This offers a continuous 4D live map.
And it fundamentally changes our role, right, from reactive to proactive.
Exactly that. It moves us from being sort of ocean coroners, studying disasters after they happen, to becoming ocean physicians, detecting problems as they form, applying preventative treatment. And it integrates the sensing and the action. It closes that loop between knowing something is wrong and doing something about it. A problem detected can be acted upon by the same node or its neighbors within minutes or hours, not months or years later.
That immediate feedback loop seems absolutely critical, but the cost. Building something this complex, it must be astronomically expensive, surely.
Well, the initial R&D would be significant, no doubt.
Mm.
But the individual biointegrators themselves, they're designed for low-cost mass production, like really low cost per unit eventually. And since they're self-powering, they eliminate fuel costs for research vessels, eliminate most maintenance trips out to sea. Millions of nodes could theoretically be deployed for the cost of just a few major traditional research expeditions, achieving global coverage for a fraction of the traditional price. Plus, they're symbiotic and sustainable by design. Self-powering, biodegradable into harmless compounds, leaving no trace. This is conceived as a truly leave-no-trace scientific instrument.
And for operating in dangerous environments, under ice and storms, this must be a game changer for safety too.
Absolutely. The disposable, autonomous nature of the nodes allows data gathering from dangerous or inaccessible parts of the ocean, like right under hurricanes, near melting ice shelves, deep-sea trenches, without risking human lives or incredibly expensive equipment like ROVs or submersibles. It really opens up the entire ocean safely.
Okay, this sounds almost too good to be true. What are the hurdles, the potential challenges that need to be really carefully considered, and how do we even begin to make something like this a reality?
That's a very fair question. And there are significant ethical and governance challenges, absolutely. One big one is the playing God dilemma, right? Who decides the correct state of an ecosystem? The AI operates on human-set parameters, so it requires this global consortium, ecologists, ethicists, policymakers to define the intervention thresholds. The goal has to be preserving biodiversity and ecological function, not engineering some kind of ideal ocean based on human preference.
And the risk of unforeseen ecological consequences, that's always a concern when we start intervening in complex natural systems, even with the best intentions.
Absolutely. Intervening can have unintended results, cascading effects. That phage therapy example, maybe it allows another harmful organism to flourish by removing its competitor. We don't always know. This is precisely why extensive phase trials are critical, starting in contained environments like large mesocosms before any wider deployment. To study these effects rigorously, the actuators themselves must be designed for minimal, highly localized, and transient impact, not large-scale, permanent changes. Then there's data sovereignty and security. That 4D digital twin would be immensely valuable, economically and strategically. This data has to be managed as a global public good like GPS is, with robust cybersecurity to prevent it being monopolized or even weaponized.
And that brings up the possibility of dual-use technology, doesn't it? Where something designed for good could potentially be repurposed for harm.
That's a serious consideration, yeah.
Right.
Especially with a network that can release microorganisms. The hardware and software would need unbreakable safeguards. Things like physical incompatibility with known weaponized agents, non-overridable do-no-harm directives, built right into the core AI programming. This would require global, transparent oversight and verification. You couldn't have just one nation controlling it.
So, assuming we can navigate those serious ethical hurdles, how do we even begin to bring this incredibly ambitious vision from concept to reality? What's the proposed pathway?
It's envisioned as a very gradual, phased approach,
Mhm.
spanning probably decades. Phase one, maybe the first 5 years or so, focuses purely on component technology, intensive lab-based R&D, developing and refining the core pieces of the MFC, the smart hydrogel, the miniaturized sensors, the acoustic chirps, the basic AI algorithms. The goal there is just a proof of concept for a Generation 1 biointegrator. Does it work in the lab?
Okay, step one, build the basic unit. And once those core components are proven,
Phase two, maybe year 6 to 10, would involve contained ecosystem trials. This means deploying small swarms, maybe dozens, maybe hundreds, of nodes in enclosed controlled environments, like large research aquariums or those big outdoor mesocosm tanks. The aim there is to rigorously test swarm communication, collective behavior, see if the localized microrestoration actually works as intended, and critically, verify the biodegradability and ensure there are no unintended side effects in a controlled, observable setting.
and then finally taking the plunge into the vastness of the ocean itself.
Yes. Phase 3, perhaps years 11 to 15, would be pilot-scale ocean deployment. Releasing thousands of Generation 2 nodes, maybe, in well-studied geographically defined areas, like a specific section of the Great Barrier Reef or a bay known for HABs. The goal there is to demonstrate real-world effectiveness, calibrate that 4D digital twin with actual messy ocean data, and prove that it can mitigate small-scale events successfully.
And the ultimate goal, the truly global network.
That would be Phase 4, year 16 and beyond. Global scaling and the formation of what the proposal calls an oceanic alliance. This means mass production, deployment of millions, maybe billions of nodes as a truly international effort. Similar in spirit to the ARGO flow program we have now, but vastly more advanced and integrated. And governance would probably need to fall under a new international body, maybe a new branch of the UN, specifically tasked with managing the network, ensuring open data access for everyone, and overseeing ethical restoration activities on a planetary scale.
So as we wrap up this really fascinating deep dive into the SOMR network concept, what's the core takeaway for you, the big picture message?
For me, the SOMR network represents this profound philosophical shift, moving away from passively observing the ocean, often as it degrades, towards actively integrating with it. It's fundamentally about empowering the ocean in a sense to heal itself, with our technology acting as a catalyst, moving us from being late-stage observers of potential planetary decline to becoming proactive, hopefully intelligent stewards.
And this raises a really provocative final thought for you, our listener, to ponder. Imagine a world where humanity's technology becomes a truly benign, symbiotic partner with Earth's critical life support systems. If we can potentially create a living digital twin of the ocean, this responsive healing network, what other planetary systems could benefit from such an approach? The forests, soils, the atmosphere itself. What does it truly mean for us to use our incredible technological capabilities not to conquer nature or just exploit it, but maybe finally to help heal it?